Well, good evening, everybody. It's Bobby Harvey once again, broadcasting live from the station platform in downtown Ottumwa, Iowa, as we wait for Amtrak's westbound California Zephyr passenger train to arrive this evening. Now, the train is running a little late. Last I knew, about 7:12, the arrival for tonight. But again, welcome to the stream for this evening. Now, as you all probably know, I did not do a live stream last week. I've kind of been doing these pretty consistently since March, doing one every week. Missed a couple of weeks here and there for, holidays and family stuff and whatnot. But I've been consistently doing these, give or take, every week since March. I'm going to keep going as long as I can, even through the winter, hopefully. So it's always something enjoyable to do, to come down here and see the train come and go. And so again, those of you that look forward to these streams every week might have noticed that I did not do a stream last week, and that was because of Old Threshers. The Midwest Old Threshers reunion in Mount Pleasant happened last weekend, along with the previous Thursday and Friday leading up to the weekend, and then, of course, ending on Labor Day. I went to all 5 days, and it was a really good reunion this year. The weather, as suspected, was pretty much exactly like I thought it would be. I mean, it was very nice. It was sunny most of the time. It was cloudy for brief periods, I think it was Saturday or Sunday, one of the weekend days, but then it cleared off, and it rained just slightly on Friday, at least while I was there. The only time it rained was just a little bit on Friday, but it was very, very minimal. I mean, it was, I almost thought that it was some of the steam vapor coming off of the steam engines that was causing the raindrops or the water droplets on my camera lens, but it wasn't. It was actual rain, but it was very minimal. But other than that, the weather was spectacular. It was still a little humid, but the temperature never really got over, the low 80s. The whole 5 days the reunion was going. It was a good one. And as suspected, steam locomotive number 9, the West Side Lumber Company Shea, made its comeback very full force. It pulled trains all 5 days, and on the Midwest Electric, their new streetcar 1811 operated, along with 3 other of the regular cars, as well as the maintenance car 1811. It did some runs a couple of the days as well, and I got one picture of them along with the other 4 cars. So it was a really good reunion, got a lot of shots, plenty of footage for a new video, and be looking forward to working on that very soon. I'm actually in the process of cataloging and putting up all the footage and taking screenshots and getting those edited in preparation for starting to work on the video. And since I don't have any other projects that I'm working on before that, I'll be able to hopefully get the Old Threshers video out fairly quickly this year. My target right now is middle to the end of October, which is a lot better than previous years when I haven't been able to post it until March, May, sometimes even July of the next year. Kind of been playing catch up for the past several years, but it'd be nice to actually get this one done and out in the same year, or just a couple months after the reunion. And it's still pretty relevant to put out an Old Threshers video in October, because the Midwest Central also keeps busy in October for their Midwest Haunted Rails event, which is a Halloween-themed train ride, and the trolleys go around too to some haunted areas. And the South Station on the Midwest Central is decked out in, it's like a giant haunted house the train goes through. There's a bunch of other things going on there too. some kid-friendly, rides and bouncy houses, and there's a haunted house if you like that sort of thing. That'll be coming up in October for 3 weekends in October. I think it's usually the second weekend in October, and then the next 2 after that. It's 3 weekends. It's Friday and Saturday, if it's anything like previous years. So that'll be coming up in October. So getting the Old Threshers video finished and out around Halloween is pretty good timing, because Old Threshers is still on a lot of people's minds, not just from the reunion only ending about a month and a half prior, but also Midwest Haunted Rails. And I've got a lot of people requesting that I do another video of Midwest Haunted Rails. Unlike Old Threshers, I haven't been over there every year. In fact, I've only been over there 3 times, ever. And it was a lot of fun the first time I went in 2019, and I went back in 2022 and last year. So I'm hoping to get back over there this year. I took a few video clips last year. I was thinking of maybe putting them into some like YouTube shorts or something, but I never did anything with them. So we'll see what this year brings. I will try to make it back over there this year. It is a very fun event, and strangely, it is totally different from Old Threshers, even though it happens on the grounds, and obviously the Midwest Central and Midwest Electric are there year-round, but it's a totally different feel. It's really fun. So if any of you are looking for something to do and are in the area in October, the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th weekends of October, Friday and Saturday, Midwest Haunted Rails over at the Old Threshers grounds in Mount Pleasant. That'll be the next thing going on over there. So the reunion just ended, believe it or not, just a few days ago. And it was very good this year. It was a really fun event. Great weather, great train action and trolley action, good family time. It was all around. It was really good reunion year. And with its completion, I have now been to 25 Old Threshers reunions, and it was Old Threshers' 75th anniversary altogether, and it was my 20th consecutive Old Threshers that I have taken video of the trains and trolleys at, and that is mind-blowing. I've been doing it for 20 years now. It's incredible. This is also the 20th anniversary of my whole Bobby Harvey video productions stuff. I made my first DVD in June of 2005. Didn't get on YouTube until a few years later, but it's amazing too that my 20th anniversary on YouTube is just going to be in a couple more years. So we're here on the platform in Ottumwa. We are waiting for the California Zephyr. It's running a little late tonight. Last I knew, it was about 7:12 was when it was going to come in. And as you can see, as the days go on, the days and weeks go on, the sun will be getting lower and lower in the sky. And pretty soon, really within the next month, it'll be pretty much dark by this time. And speaking of the weather, I've been talking a lot about it, the weather has changed since Old Threshers. It has actually gotten a lot more fall-like in the past few days. Lows in the mid-40s, highs in the upper 70s, mid-70s, sometimes upper 60s. So a couple weeks ago when I was doing this stream, I was wearing just, a t-shirt, shorts. Today, long pants and a coat. It is a little brisk out here, but very nice for this time of year. It is very nice out here. And as you can see right now, it is great photography weather. The lighting is perfect. So we'll go through some of the chat right now. Dakota's here. Yep. Good seeing you at Old Threshers. Annette is here. James is here. Says congratulations on your milestone. thank you very much. And you know, I still remember the very first Old Threshers that I went to. Of course, I was only 7 years old, so I didn't take any pictures or video. And of course, you know, we didn't have the technology that we have now. Back in 1999, you know, we didn't have, cameras with phones. And, you know, I'd have to take, I would have had to take my mom's old RCA camcorder to Old Threshers, which is, probably about 2.5 times the size of my high definition video camera that I film with now, and certainly much bigger than an iPhone, which I do all my live streams on. So I didn't take any pictures that year. My grandma did. My grandparents went with me that first time, and so they have pictures of me at Old Threshers for the very first time. It's hard to believe that that was over 25 years ago now. And we didn't go in the year 2000. And I think it's because, we went for the first time in 99. And so the tradition hadn't really been cemented yet in our minds. And so we just didn't go in 2000. And then for whatever reason, we remembered it again in 2001. My sister and I had our mom take us up there. And after that, we really started to enjoy, not that we didn't enjoy the first one, but we really started to think about Old Threshers as being an annual thing. And we've gone every year since then. Obviously, there wasn't a reunion in 2020, so we didn't really miss that year because the reunion actually didn't happen. But apart from 2000, we've gone to every Old Threshers reunion since 1999. And we'll probably talk about Old Threshers as the stream goes along. But for now, let's talk about what we're looking at here. We are on the station platform here in Ottumwa, waiting for the westbound California Zephyr Amtrak train, which runs from Chicago to Emeryville, California. Carrying on the tradition of passenger service that was, started. You got to go all the way back to the 1850s, I'm pretty sure, is when the first railroad arrived in Ottumwa. The California Zephyr was created by the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Railroad. That's more famously known as the Burlington route. And they partnered with the Denver and Rio Grande Western and the Western Pacific Railroads to create the one and only Zephyr train that essentially went transcontinental from Chicago all the way to California. So off of the CB&Q system, because the Zephyr trains were really the creation of the Burlington route. And with only a couple other exceptions, the trains only operated, of course, on the CB&Q network. The exceptions being, I think the Zephyr Rocket was a combination between the Burlington and the Rock Island railroads. And then, of course, the California Zephyr, which went all the way to California via the Rio Grande and Western Pacific, west of Denver. It was on CB&Q tracks from Chicago to Denver. The train first started, the California Zephyr first started, I believe it was 1948, and it operated all the way continuously until 1970, and then the Western Pacific portion of the train was discontinued. The Burlington, which became the Burlington Northern, they operated their segment until the creation of Amtrak in 1971, and the Rio Grande operated their portion of the Zephyr between Denver and Salt Lake City until the mid-'80s before joining Amtrak. After Amtrak's creation in 71, the Zephyr came back as the San Francisco Zephyr, and it went, and since Rio Grande was still operating their portion of the Zephyr, the Amtrak train at the time went north from Denver and up through Wyoming, and then back down to Salt Lake City, and the rest of the way over to California. After Rio Grande discontinued their portion of the Zephyr in the 80s, the train was rerouted onto the original California Zephyr route over the Rocky Mountains, which is probably the most famous and the most spectacular Rocky Mountain crossing that you can go over on a passenger train in the U.S. Once that happened, the California Zephyr branding came back, and the Amtrak California Zephyr was born. And fast forward over 40 years, and that's what we have running today. Of course, the Zephyr has changed a lot since then. Back in the 80s, it was, when it was first inaugurated as the San Francisco Zephyr, in the very beginning of Amtrak, it operated with the old hand-me-down, steam-heated, steam-generated Heritage fleet. And then in the 80s, it transitioned to a superliner train, and that's pretty much what it's been since then. The motive power back then was, of course, the F40 locomotives, and then in the mid-90s, the Genesis series engines came along, and they've been pulling the train ever since. So really, for the past 30-plus years, the basic consist of the Zephyr hasn't really changed that much. The only big change that's happened in the past 30 years has been the discontinuance of Mail and Express. Amtrak used to run a lot of mail cars and even some palletized freight on the Zephyr and other long-distance trains. So the Zephyr would have a whole fleet of mail cars and, sometimes multiple baggage cars. And in its later years of Mail and Express, they would have express box cars and even road railer cars on the end of the train. Now, the Amtrak president at the time, David Gunn, he discontinued Mail and Express in 2004 because the switching out times in terminals slowed down the passenger trains. I mean, people would have to wait in the terminals while freight cars were added and taken off, and so it was affecting the train schedule, and so that service was discontinued. Now, that's, believe it or not, that's been over 20 years now that's been discontinued. So the train has pretty much operated in the exact same configuration, the same equipment since then. Since the Mail and Express discontinuance, the only other change to the train has been the removal and the retirement of the Heritage Fleet baggage cars, which obviously now the new Viewliner 2 baggage cars have taken over. But that won't be the end of changes for this train. Before long, I don't know when exactly it's going to happen. They've been talking about it for the past couple of years, and it's already happened on other Amtrak long-distance routes. But the new ALC-42 Charger locomotives will eventually be pulling these trains. Once Amtrak gets enough of them and enough of the kinks are worked out. The Chargers are already running on the Empire Builder, Coast Starlight, the City of New Orleans, and the Floridian, and the Auto Train, just to name a few. And I think the main reason why they haven't started running on the Zephyr yet is because Amtrak is still trying to find a reliable vendor for the DEF diesel fuel blend that the Chargers use along the California Zephyr line. I don't think they've really gotten any of that figured out yet. And once they do, I assume that the Chargers will start to roll out on this line. Now, the engineers on the line have already been familiarized with the Chargers, and there have been a couple of test runs of the locomotives. Right when they started coming out back in 2022, there was a test run from California to Chicago where 2 Chargers along with 2 new ones, so there were 4 Chargers on the train, no P-42s, and they pulled the train from California all the way to Chicago. I just happened to be in Omaha at the time and got the train going through Omaha, which I have that video on my YouTube channel. But that was the last time the Chargers actually piloted a train through here, but that'll change once Amtrak gets the diesel fuel thing figured out and starts introducing the engines to this line. So, with that, our train, the westbound California Zephyr, is arriving in Ottumwa.
Amtrak train 5, release track number 73071.
Okay, ready for Dot 71, over.
Engineer Naps, AMTK 189, report clearance of track one number 730-71, CTC 2502 to TTC at Ottumwa, May 1 at 1914, 1914, over.
AMTK 189 West, reporting clear track warrant 730-71, 2502, Ottumwa at 1914.
And we have arrived. Now, I will say that I am excited to see the Chargers be introduced to this train, but I will sorely miss these locomotives. But I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon. There's going to be some semblance of these locomotives probably for the next 5-10 years. Ken just commented that he misses the E8 locomotives. Man, I wish I could have seen those. Now there is a classic. You know, believe it or not, these engines are going to go down in history as being classic engines too. Now, you can't argue with the looks of an E8 or an E or F unit. That probably was the pinnacle of the streamliner look for trains. But, you know, these engines are typical Amtrak. And they are historic. Been around for 30 years. So our leader is engine 189, and some of you might recognize that number because for a while that engine was the so-called big game train locomotive that they used on the Heartland Flyer. And it ran around the system nationally with big game train stickers for the longest time. Obviously, they are removed now. Now, the second engine is one of Amtrak's oldest P-42s, number 4. It's always kind of neat to see a high-numbered engine and a low-numbered engine on the same train. Well, we got an eastbound train coming. I don't know what it is. Looks like a coal train. That's our warning whistle for the Zephyr. They give one of those to allow all the passengers that are on the platform to get back on, since Ottumwa is a fresh air stop. So anybody that's on the train can get off and stretch their legs. And I think you can see it down there, the signal for Amtrak. Right down there is at a clear aspect. So they're going to be able to get right out of town when they finish boarding passengers. We got all the people on now. The platform is clear, so they're going to be pulling momentarily. the end of the freight train. Alright, so we just had a eastbound coal train go through on the other side. Yeah, A-Train said that, and I agree, it did look like there was an AC 4400 CW on the back. So 2 SD70 ACs on the front and an AC 4400 CW on the back for that eastbound coal train. Still got Amtrak in the station here, and they're about ready to go. They gave the warning whistle a few minutes ago, and the platform is clear. I don't know what they're waiting on. Might be waiting on PTC to load, who knows. Got a clear signal. Yeah, they're toning up the dispatcher. Okay, they are indeed having... Okay, they are having some sort of PTC problem. It's not loading or something. Obviously on this type of... They're communicating with the PTC desk on BNSF, try and figure out what's going on. On this type of line, you're required to have positive train control. Without that, you can't run your train unless you get permission to disable it.
Amtrak 189, can you try that one more time for me? Yes.
Those of you that are just joining us, we've got Amtrak in the station and they're having issues with their PTC loading. They've been in the station for a while. They've done their station work. The passengers are on board. They're ready to go. But obviously they can't go until their PTC comes up properly. And right now it isn't. They've been talking to the BNSF PTC desk to see if they can try and figure out what's going on. Now, I'm pretty sure that if for some reason PTC does not load, they can get permission to cut out PTC and continue. But I think that also involves a restricted speed. Which would delay the train significantly, so hopefully they get it figured out. Obviously it was working when they came in, but whenever they do a crew change, they have to reinitialize the PTC for the new crew, and sometimes it doesn't come back up properly. It happened a lot when PTC first rolled out. Obviously, it still happens sometimes today. Something else you have to think about, as you can see down there in the distance, the signals at the crossing with CPKC, Amtrak does have a clear signal, so they've got the track. They just need PTC to load so they can continue. might have got it. We'll see.
Yep. Alright, okay, that's good. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, they got their PTC up. Here they go. $189 and 4 on the front. We got our Viewliner 2 baggage car and our train. It's a little shorter than it has been. Transition sleeper. Got 3 normal sleeping cars. So 4 sleepers total, which is good. Dining car. Lounge car. And just 2 coaches. Normal coach and coach baggage bringing up the rear of tonight's train. And with that, the California Zephyr is now clear of the Ottumwa station, heading west, running a little behind schedule. The train is pretty much riding off into the sunset for its next stop in Osceola, followed by Creston, Omaha, Lincoln, and all points west. In 2 days, the train will arrive in California, the San Francisco Bay Area in Emeryville, California. Now, as I said at the beginning of this stream, that the sun is going down a lot earlier. Of course, the train is running late, but as the weeks and months go on, this sunlight will disappear at this time of day. It'll be dark. And of course, when the time changes in the beginning of November, it will be dark exclusively, pretty much the entire time we're on standard time, from the beginning of November all the way until mid-March of next year. This train will arrive in Ottumwa all the time in darkness. Might be able to see the signal down there at the CPKC, right on the other side of that platform sign there with the exclamation point on it. Watch the Zephyr knock it down here. You can see it's clear. Once the train goes by, it'll display red for the stop indication. And there it goes. The Zephyr is on its way. So the reason that they were in the station for longer than usual is they were having issues reinitializing their PTC. From what I heard on the radio, and I kind of had it up to the camera, so I don't know if you guys heard any of that or not, but from what I heard, something to do with the train wasn't showing up properly on the screen or in the system, and BNSF determined that it wasn't a BNSF problem. It was something to do with the Amtrak system not loading properly. But they did something. They rebooted it or reinitialized or did something with it, and it came up. So they were able to proceed with full PTC on west. Now, it is kind of a bummer when stuff like that happens because, again, when they come into the station like Ottumwa and they do a crew change, they have to essentially take down the PTC that's loaded on the engine, and then the relief engineer has to reinitialize it and bring it back up. I'm guessing that has something to do with safety, like safety procedures, like the engineer. That way the engineer has a full understanding of what's up ahead and restricted speeds and track warrants and all that stuff. Or maybe that just has something to do with the way the system works. But a lot of times you can have perfectly running PTC and you come in to do a crew change and then it doesn't reinitialize for some reason and you're sitting around waiting for a while until it does. But I don't think that happens near as much now as it did when PTC first rolled out on these lines. Now, interesting tidbit, the California Zephyr route, most railroads have to have PTC now in some form. The large railroads, the Class 1 railroads, all have to have PTC, except for some exceptions. If your line has, I think it's like fewer than 5 trains a day, or if you don't have any hazardous trains carrying hazardous materials regularly operating on those lines, or if it's below 4 trains a day, or there's some rules like that exempt a line from being PTC required. And one of those lines is actually part of the California Zephyr route in the west. The stretch of line, I'm pretty sure it's between Grand Junction, Colorado and Salt Lake City, I think is exempt from PTC and does not have PTC enabled on that line. And that's because there aren't very many trains on the old Rio Grande on that portion of the line anymore. I really think there's only like a few freight trains, along with Amtrak. There's a BNSF train that has trackage rights on that line, and then maybe just a few other Union Pacific trains now. It's not a very busy line. Not anything like it used to be. So that line does not have PTC. Now, another example of a rail line in Iowa, for example, a major rail line in Iowa that does not have PTC is the Iowa Interstate Railroad, which is a regional railroad, and they also don't operate very many trains on their line, and the majority of them do not haul hazardous materials. And another way they can kind of get around the PTC rules is that there also are no passenger trains regularly operating on that line. So there's a lot of exceptions that can go into effect. But obviously, this line has a lot of freight trains and passenger trains, and hazardous materials roll down this line frequently, so it is definitely within the requirements for having positive train control enabled. So what PTC is basically a computerized overlay, a safety overlay that prevents the crew from accidentally, but it basically prevents the train from getting into dangerous situations. Like, it automatically knows where all the trains are and what the signal aspects are. And if the engineer, like let's say they miss a signal, or they're coming up to a stop signal too quickly, or there's another train in the area, PTC will know all this and automatically stop the train. And this came about, started to come about. I mean, the technology already existed before these accidents, but there was a very serious accident between a commuter train and freight train in California in 2008. It was I'm pretty sure it was the Chatsworth train collision. And unfortunately, there were a lot of fatalities in that crash. And the crash was caused by the Metrolink commuter train engineer texting while operating the train and missing a red signal. The train went through the interlocking and came around a blind curve and was right in the path of an oncoming Union Pacific freight train, and they hit head on. And I'm pretty sure that there were at least like 11 people perished in that accident, and it was really bad. And that accident was kind of the catalyst behind the positive train control mandates going nationwide, and it was fully implemented. I think it was, the original deadline was 2015, but I think it got extended to maybe 2018 or so. Obviously, we're a good 10 years past that now, 2015. So all the rail lines nationwide have PTC, with a few exceptions here in the U.S. And I think Canada has a similar system that either has already been introduced or is in the process of being rolled out as well. The only downside to PTC is that with computers, the more computerized you get, the more problems you might come across, and the system doesn't work and you have to reboot this or that, or whenever you get more technology involved, a lot of times things just if something doesn't work properly, you can't really do anything. So it's you kind of wish that you go back to the old days when stuff like that happens and just have better, better understanding of, good engineering. I mean, if you're a good train engineer, you don't need all this technology to tell you if there's, a hazard up ahead. You just need to look at the signals and, pay attention. But obviously the technology is good to have because it does, and it will prevent, a lot of, accidents, disasters in the future. When it works, just like anything, computers are good when they work. When they don't work, progress is essentially shut down. Well, speaking of shutting down, as you can see, the sun is really beginning to set here in Ottumwa. JMAX official has joined the stream, and he said that, he finds it comical that the weather can knock PTC out as well. I'm sure it can. Severe weather, you might not be able to get any of the, radio signals for PTC. And another thing that PTC can do, which railroads haven't done in America that I know of, PTC can essentially eliminate wayside signals and create like flexible blocks. So the blocks move with the trains, and it creates kind of a safety bubble around all the trains. And so you wouldn't need wayside signals anymore. But I think that that system is a lot more expensive to implement. So all the railroads went with kind of an overlay where the safety system is put in along with wayside signals. Now imagine if PTC quit working on a line that didn't have signals and just had those flexible blocks. That would be a mess. JMAX official just also commented, said that he was on a Metro train and the rain took it out the entire line for an hour. Yeah. It would really be tough on a commuter line for that to happen when there's all these commuters wanting to get home and all these trains operating. And if the PTC or if something happens, it just screws up the entire line. But, that happens. That could happen for a lot of different reasons, not just PTC. It could be, an accident or, a train has become disabled or, a lot of things. That happens in Chicago a lot. Where something happens on the line and then all the commuter trains are delayed and bunched up and, it's a mess. Not as much of an issue passenger-wise in a town like Ottumwa, where you only have 2 passenger trains a day, but on the Chicago lines, when you have dozens and dozens and dozens of passenger trains on each line every day, it can be a major problem if something happens on the line. Now, luckily for trains on the BNSF line in Chicago, for example, it is a 3-track line, so if one track is spared from any problems, they can just run trains around on that track. And they also have, they've got 3 tracks to choose from if anything happens. But then, let's say a train derails and fouls all 3 tracks. Well, then the line shuts down and, it's pandemonium. Well, what we hear right now is conversation on the CPKC, which of course we really can't see from the station here. The signals are out to our west. The signals to our east are out as well. So we did see that coal train go through the station along with Amtrak. That may have been the only freight train for a while.
It should be a northbound train. Looks like a BN coal train.
Yeah, JMAX official also commented just now. Said a couple years ago, PTC got knocked out on the dispatcher side of operations and trains all around the country got delayed simultaneously, and a solar storm was the prime suspect. That's another thing you have to think about. What if there was a storm like that caused a bunch of electronic interference. People talk about, of course, this, I don't know how much of this is actually true or if it would happen. But I suppose if he had a really bad solar storm, people talk about a really bad solar storm where all electronics could essentially be pretty much rendered useless overnight. Now, if that happened, the only trains that would be running are, pretty much the old first-generation diesels and steam engines. And that's it. And of course, there's only a handful of those still operating. So, but I don't know if, modern electronics might be able to withstand a lot of that stuff. But, so I don't know if, that's really a big concern or not. But, people talk about that. A lot of like conspiracy theorists and stuff like that, they talk about that stuff all the time. So I don't know how true a lot of that is, but I suppose if a really bad storm did happen, we would see a lot of damage to electronic components. And that's something about today's modern age, which, computerization is nice, but what happens if something goes wrong and the computer system goes down? A lot of stuff would quit operating. That's why it's always nice to have a backup power source or something to be able to power things. It's not based on computers. Even basic electronic circuits could be affected by bad solar storms too. Funny thing is, one thing that wouldn't really be affected by a solar storm is old Threshers. Let's say a solar storm came through during old Threshers. Well, if you've got enough coal and, used oil lying around, the steam engines can still run. If you've got enough food nearby, you've got, you can pretty much, fry your eggs in the, on a shovel in the steam engine firebox. So, that'd be one thing that would not be affected by a solar storm. Now, I think I'm going to move the camera really quick before we say goodbye tonight. And the signal's just lit up. Regardless of there being any more trains, I'm going to move the camera just a little bit because we have what appears to be a full moon rising over the Ottumwa station. Wow. We're going to move the camera just a little bit so you can see it. Don't know if the phone can really get any of the moon details, but there it is. Moon coming up over the station here in Ottumwa. Really nice. Of course, the naked eye, I can see all the moon's details, but you can't really see it in the camera. But there it is. Looks to be full. And we have a clear signal for another eastbound train now. Well, we'll see how soon it gets here. We might keep things rolling for it. Comes by in the next 10 minutes or so. The moon is really big, too. I wonder if that's, essentially going to be the harvest moon for this year. Usually comes in around, late September. So as I just mentioned, we have the signals lit up in the east and west. Wow, there's our platform lights. Yeah, you can see a little more contrast to the moon now, just a little bit. And as you just saw, the platform lights lit up, which when we come down here later on in the late fall and winter months, these platforms, the brand new platforms that got installed last year,
Alright, copy that. Wait on Amtrak. ahead east. Over.
Okay. Well, I wonder if that is the train that's coming east.
Yes, over.
Or if there's another train in front of it. I don't know. Yeah, we'll give it a few more minutes.
And 6680, we'll cross over to 2 at Max 10. Over.
Yeah, they're mentioning an eastbound train at Maxon, and if that's the case, we won't worry about it. But there might be another train in between it and here. So. Yeah, that's a really nice scene. Of course, it looks better in person than it does here, but it's really neat to see the moon coming up over at a good place for pictures here in Ottumwa. Now, I remember very fondly, I actually got video of this moment as well. I was in Batavia filming trains. I'm trying to remember what year it was. I think it was 2009, 2010, 2011, one of those years. I was still filming with my standard definition video camera that took old digital 8 camcorder tapes. And Amtrak was on its way. And this was the end of September. It was the last day of summer. So it was the last day of summer, and
2326 on me.
and I remember Amtrak was coming, and I almost ran out of light, and it was a full moon, and the moon rose over the tracks, pretty much right over where I was filming, and I got the full moon coming up, kind of like it is now, and Amtrak came through with just enough light to get a really dramatic, dark, night shot of the train going by. Yeah, it was really cool. I did take video of that, and it was in one of my early DVDs. That footage is not on YouTube right now. I have a lot of footage from the early days of videotaping that has not made it to YouTube yet. Which I'll eventually get it uploaded sometime in the future. All right, so Amtrak has left not too long ago, and the sun is really starting to set, as you can see. We really have pretty much lost most of it, but we don't have to worry about that necessarily because we've got these nice platform lights that light up the scene. There is some sort of eastbound movement coming, but I don't know whether it's actually on its way or if it's that train that they mentioned on the radio that's west of Maxon. If that is the case, it's not going to be here for another 30 minutes or so. I'm not going to worry about that. But if it comes by in the next 10 minutes or so, then obviously we'll be able to see it. But if not, we will go ahead and pack things up for the night. So stay tuned for that. Now, Dakota asks, and no, I actually haven't mentioned this yet. That's a good question. He asked how the O-gauge train layout is coming along. Very well. I have it all wired up, and I've gotten some buildings put out kind of where I want them to be, and I've been running trains. I've got all my rolling stock in underneath the layout, got it organized really nicely on some shelving that I have, and it all fits right now. All the rolling stock that I have actually fits underneath the layout, and it's coming along nicely. I'm really enjoying running trains, and actually having the trains be in a nice place in the house. I could just walk down the hall to the train room and run trains. And I actually got a few O-gauge pieces at Old Threshers. Got a set of Santa Fe passenger cars, which I already have some, so they kind of complement that. Santa Fe baggage car, a dome car, an observation car. And I also got an old Lionel TP&W boxcar from the MPC era. It's a very basic boxcar. Really like the orange TP&W paint scheme. So I already have the Lionel TPW caboose, so I went ahead and picked that up. And I actually didn't see the boxcar the first couple times I looked at the trains. And then when I went back to buy the Santa Fe cars, I saw it there. And I'm like, well, $15, I better pick that up. So I did. But yeah, the Santa Fe cars, the guy that I buy trains off of every year at Old Threshers, he does a train show in Washington, Iowa, at least 2 times a year. And I bought trains off of him for years. I usually buy something off of him every Old Threshers. And yeah, it's he usually had, I mean, he has pretty decent prices. And the trains you get, I mean, they might have some, you know, scratches and kind of, you can tell they've been used, but they're still pretty good quality for what you pay for. I mean, his stuff is not overpriced at all. I mean, it's very reasonable. So these passenger cars that I got, they're kind of, I mean, they definitely have been run, but they're still very sturdy and just need cleaned up a little bit and maybe some adjustments here and there. Kind of had some issues with one of the couplers on the dome car, but I think I can get that figured out. But all 3 cars still light. All the lights work in them. So it was a pretty good buy. And obviously, not much can go wrong with a basic boxcar. So that's been what's going on in the O-gauge world lately, in my area, anyways. Got the full moon rising over the Ottumwa station. It's pretty neat to see. Yes, as Ken just commented here, Ken Vendevort, hope I pronounced that correctly. He said that October 25th and 26th is the Washington train sale in Washington, Iowa. I actually have a flyer for it at home too, so as he was handing them out. Gerald, I think is his name, that runs that show and that was set up at Old Threshers. Now, last year at Old Threshers, I bought some Marks O-gauge equipment, and I also got a Milwaukee Road Lionel GP20 locomotive. And it had some, you know, kind of cosmetic, you know, scratches and dents. And one of the handrails was bent just a little bit. But I did my research before I bought this, and it was a locomotive that had sounds and command control, the whole 9 yards. And it was only like $75. I'm like, wow. And I looked it up, and it was going on eBay for anywhere between $200 to $400. I'm like, wow. Of course, there's no box or anything, so I'm like, well, that's probably one of the reasons why it was, you know, pretty cheap. And so I bought it, you know, not thinking much, you know, maybe, you know, it doesn't run, maybe it needs some work or whatever, and put it on the track, and it fired up immediately in conventional mode. All the sounds and stuff were working, but it didn't work in command. And so I thought, well, that's probably why it was so cheap. So I just ran the engine, because it's still not very expensive for a conventional locomotive even. $75 is very cheap for a powered locomotive of any kind in O-gauge. But then, for whatever reason, the engine quit responding in conventional. The cab light just blinked. And I'm like, that happened to me once with one of my other command engines, and when I fired it up in command, it worked. So I, just on a whim, I changed to command mode and fired up the engine again, and it came up in command mode. So I have a fully functional command control locomotive that I bought for only $75, and it's a great engine. I really like it. That's what I got last year at Old Threshers. Well, we didn't have to wait very long, folks, because our eastbound train is now approaching. So we are going to wrap things up tonight with a twilight eastbound freight train. And this is actually the 3rd train we've seen tonight. Got to see Amtrak and a eastbound coal train that came through while Amtrak was in the station. And now this train, we'll get to see what it is. I have no idea what it is. Most likely it's a coal train, but it may not be. So we'll get to see it. And this is pretty much how it's going to be in the coming months up ahead when we do these streams. It'll be nocturnal rail fanning, which is kind of neat. If you're in a place where you've got good lighting, like this platform, you can get some really good night shots. So here we go. To wrap up our stream for tonight is another train, an eastbound BNSF freight train coming through downtown Ottumwa, past the station. Yeah, check that out. He had a Canadian National engine second on that lash up. That's pretty cool. You really do not see that much around here. Your typical BNSF leader, it's a ES44, but it was a Canadian National GE locomotive that was second as another loaded eastbound coal train. It's always fun when you get to see stuff out of the ordinary on normal trains. And again, seeing a Canadian National engine in any form around here is unusual. Not completely unheard of. I have gotten some video of them leading trains through here from time to time, but it's pretty unusual. Getting back to the conversation of PTC, in the beginning, it was not compatible with different railroads. So if you're on a railroad like BNSF, only BNSF engines could lead. But as time went on, the compatibility between railroads became easier. And so now, just like in the past, you see foreign roads on different railroads' trains, which is always fun to see. Kind of breaks up the normalcy or the redundancy. Yeah, as A-Train commented, it is weird to see foreign power on coal trains, which these coal trains are pretty much exclusively on BNSF rails. So it's kind of strange that you would see a foreign locomotive on a train that never leaves BNSF, but it does happen. I've seen it many times, but it's unusual, so it's fun to see. Yeah, the light is just about gone. That's okay. So we got these really nice new LED platform lights, which will always light up the scene here. So even in the dead of winter, be able to get trains coming through here and plenty of light for decent video. Here comes the end. And there we have it, folks. With the full moon rising, we have reached the end of our live stream for this evening. It's nice to get back down here after Old Threshers, get back into the swing of things, and we'll be doing this again, most likely, next weekend. Probably on Saturday, either Saturday or Sunday. I like to do them on Saturday because then you still have half the weekend before you have to go back to work, which is nice. So be on the lookout for that next weekend. We'll be doing another stream next weekend, probably on Saturday, but I will let you guys know. As that eastbound coal train heads out into the distance, heading for its destination. Signals to our west are still all red, so that's all the action on the railroad for now, and a perfect time to end the stream. So, thank you everybody for tuning in, and we will be back with more chat, more stories, and more trains next time as the live streams continue here on the Bobby Harvey Video Productions channel. So, with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up for the night. We will see you all next week. Let you guys know what day it is. Probably going to be Saturday when I do my next stream. I'll let you know. And we'll see you all then. This is Bobby Harvey in Ottumwa, signing off for tonight. Thank you all for watching. And we'll see you next week with another Amtrak train here in Ottumwa. So long, everyone.